Are you trying to put together a pantry, or maybe you're just trying to fill in the gaps of whatever supplies you have? Well, today we are talking about 16 top frugal essentials that you need in your pantry. Focus on these things and then you can build around them. So let's get started. Welcome to Ridgehaven Homestead. From the mountains of Upper East Tennessee, we share snippets of our off-grid life, cabin build, and garden blessings. Pour yourself a cup of tea, sit back, and take a peek into our off-grid home and family. Okay, as we dive into our Frugal Pantry essentials, we are going to do the first 8 in this video and then be on the lookout for part 2. Back in our grandparents' day, people always had a pantry. During the different wars, we read about people who took from their root cellars and their pantries, and they generally fared pretty well if they could put aside food for later. Well, we need to learn from the past and model our pantries after those things, and then we can find that maybe it's not as overwhelming as we thought it was. So our top 16 frugal pantry essentials. At the top of my list, I think, the most frugal thing you can stock, and that is beans. Beans, beans, beans. There are so many kinds of beans. Pintos are probably our universal favorite. You can get them in bulk, and the more you buy, the more you save generally. So look around and see where the best prices are. But there are so many flavors and colors and shapes of beans so that you never really need to go bored eating beans. Here in this jar, I don't even know how many there are. We've got red lentils, green split peas, pintos, kidney beans, black-eyed peas, lima beans, small lentils, small red beans, black beans, some kind of yellow split peas, and mung beans, and everything in between. So there's probably at least 15 kinds of beans. And this was a mix that I got commercially, and then I added my own to it. I like to get my beans, if I can, in bulk. A lot of times you can find large quantities if you look at like the bulk food stores, but if you can't find a really good source, there's always Walmart. I get a 20-pound bag at Walmart. It's less than $1 a pound, and beans are such an important food for your pantry. For one, they sit on your shelf forever, and you can vacuum seal them if you want to. It will extend their shelf life. But generally, if you store them in an airtight place where mice and bugs can't get in, they're going to last a long, long time. Then all you have to do is pop them in your pressure cooker or your crock pot or your Instant Pot, or just cook them slowly over the stove. And so we love beans. We eat beans like so much. And I just think it's a good protein source, especially if you pair it with like a grain, then you get a complete protein. About beans, just pay attention to the price per ounce and the price per pound. Sometimes I find that the Dollar Tree has decent prices on the beans, and sometimes I just move on. The next frugal pantry item that is definitely an essential for us is rice. We eat a lot of rice, and like I told you with the beans, you can pair it with beans or other legumes and it makes a complete protein. So you get all your essential amino acids with the beans and the rice, or with the beans and another type of grain. Now you can get white rice for very cheap. Enriched white rice, you can get it at the Dollar Tree. If you can afford it, bump up your nutrition value a little bit and get brown rice or some other unrefined, because then you'll have the fiber and you'll have the additional nutrients, because it's not only about saving money, it's about saving money to have a healthy diet. So we like the brown rice, but even in the brown rice, you can get long grain, short grain, sticky rice. There's lots of different kinds of rice, and within the whole rice world, you've got lots of variety. You've got jasmine, you've got basmati, you've got brown basmati, short grain, long grain, sticky, instant. Lots and lots of kind. You can go a little more exotic, but since we're talking frugal, I would say brown rice and white rice are probably the cheapest you're going to find. You can get them for 2 pounds for $1.25 at the Dollar Tree. Look around, look for non-GMO, and if you can get organic, that's even better. Do the best you can. With rice, you can do so many things. You can not only just eat plain rice with your beans, but you can use rice at breakfast. You can make it into a nice like rice pudding, or add coconut milk and pineapple and make kind of like a tropical rice. And so there's lots of things you can do with rice. You don't have to just eat it out of a bowl. The next Frugal Pantry essential that I want to mention is oats. Oats, oatmeal, so many different kinds of oats. They are really generally pretty inexpensive, and they can just really go in many different directions. My favorite way is probably to make granola. I don't do it as often as I would like, or as often as my family would like, but if you make your own granola, it becomes more economical. But with oatmeal, you can do your traditional cooked oatmeal. You can do an overnight oatmeal. We also like to use oatmeal in savory ways. We have several recipes where we make like burgers out of oats and savory patties, and that's really delicious too. So there's lots of different things you can do with oats. I do like to get my oats in 50-pound bags if I can help it, because you just save a lot more that way. And so I do have a 50-pound bag that I need to do something with right now, and it's just waiting for me to make some granola out of it. You can even grind your oats and make an oat flour. With the oat flour, you can make biscuits and pancakes and different things. It's a pretty light flour, and I've done that many times. Definitely oats are on the essential list. Okay, then our next Frugal Pantry essential is flour. Flour, or something to make flour with. So when I say flour, I generally am meaning all-purpose flour or whole wheat flour, any of the flours that you use to make your breads. Also having like something that you can make flour with, meaning wheat berries, different kinds of berries that you can grind. So I think every Frugal Pantry, if you can swing it, should have a grain grinder, because then your options are so much bigger. For instance, we have a Nutrimill grain grinder that we use for lots of different things. Over the years, we've used our grain grinder for many things, but the most common thing that people use a grain grinder for is for making flour out of wheat berries. It makes your bread so much nicer and fresher, and really does taste quite a bit better. Your wheat berries are going to last longer sitting on the shelf than your flour. Your flour can turn bad more easily, but the wheat berries are a lot longer, and so you can grind them when you're ready, and then you'll have food for the future. So I definitely recommend investing in some type of grain grinder. You can get a hand crank one, you can get an electric one. There's so many different kinds, so look into the one that will work best for your homestead in your pantry. But the kind that we have decided on over many months of research is the Nutrimill. We've had it for many years. We've had it probably for 15, 16, 17 years, something like that, and we've gotten a lot of good use out of it. I would, if you can swing it, if you have a place to store flour, I would get enough flour that you can have a ready supply for quite a while. You can store it in 5-gallon buckets, make it airtight. You can add different things to absorb the oxygen, but buy as much as you think you're going to use. If you're not going to make bread very often, then a 5-pound bag from the grocery store might be sufficient for you. But I do think flour is something that you can just go so many directions with, because you can pretty much make anything if you have the right kind of flour. Another pantry essential that I consider an essential that you might not have thought about is popcorn. So we like to buy popcorn in 50-pound bags. And I know that that sounds like we must eat a lot of popcorn, which we do, because that is a very frugal snack to have on hand. But the reason that I like to buy popcorn is because we like to grind it into flour or cornmeal and do so many things with popcorn. I have pretty much stopped buying regular cornmeal, because over the years they started genetically modifying it, and we weren't really comfortable with that. So the last time we checked, they still were not genetically modifying popcorn. And so we can throw popcorn in our grain grinder, and we can have cornmeal. We can have basically like grits made out of popcorn, and it's quite delicious. We can make a cereal for the morning, and then we can do all kinds of things with that corn flour. Cornbread. We use it in our waffles with oat flour, and there's just lots of different ways that we use it. And so if you have it, you're going to use it more. And popcorn will last for a long, long time in a 5-gallon bucket. Just add something, just make sure it's airtight. But popcorn is definitely a pantry essential that I think we definitely need to have, and you would probably do well to consider. It's very frugal. If you buy it in the 50-pound bags, it's pretty cheap, and it lasts you a long, long time, even if you're making it into flour. Our next Frugal Pantry essential is something that you probably always have in your kitchen and in your pantry anyway, but having a good supply will make all these things so much better, and that is salt. Have a good supply of salt. If you're going to be cooking your own beans, and if you're going to be making your own bread, then having salt is a must. So buy more than you would usually use, store it in an airtight container, and salt is never really truly going to go bad. It might get lumpy on you and you might need to pound it out, but salt is salt and it's not going to go bad. So have a good supply of salt, and it's generally pretty frugal. The next pantry essential I believe that we should all have is some type of oil. Some type of cooking oil will help us to make our flours and our cornmeals into a nice bread or whatever kind of pastries that you want to make. And so so many recipes use oil. So get the kind of oil that your family will use in cooking. Get a little bit ahead, but I wouldn't go a lot ahead. And the reason is because oil can go rancid, and so you don't want to spend a lot of money on things that could go rancid on you. So that is something that if you have a way to source your own, that's great. I know some people do. If they have a homestead, they can source their own oils, and we have not been able to do that yet, but it's just a good idea to look into that. We like to get olive oil, and we like to get like a sunflower oil to use in our cooking, and we usually get that from Costco. Because oil is such an expensive thing, then you want to use it carefully and sparingly, but I do include it in a Frugal Pantry list because it turns the other things into recipes, and it's still pretty frugal to get your flour and your salt and your oil and make things rather than buying them pre-made. If we are making a lot of our own home-cooked, home-baked goods, then we need some way to leaven the flour. We need some way to make our biscuits rise, make our cakes rise in our flour. So some type of yeast or leavening is a must. Now, if you are going to be making sourdough bread, you'll practically have an endless supply once you get your starter going. I've not delved into that. That's on my bucket list of things that I want to do on this homestead, but so far I haven't done sourdough. But if you get a good starter, it'll last you a long time. Otherwise, you're going to have to buy some type of yeast or baking powder or soda, something to leaven your breads. And so get enough that it will last you a little while, and don't get way too much because yeast can go bad and baking powder can go flat. So just be a little bit judicious and try to store them in a way that they won't go bad, but they are definitely part of a frugal pantry. We did it. We got to the end of our first half of our Frugal Pantry Essentials. Join us next time for the next 8 Frugal Pantry Essentials, and we're going to go over 8 more things that you definitely want in your Frugal Pantry. Until our next video, stay safe, be well, and may God bless you.